On 24th December 1971, in South America, LANSA Airlines Flight 508 took off from Lima, the capital of Peru. There were 86 passengers on board, and the aircraft was flying over the Amazon rainforest towards the city of Pucallpa. The first half hour of the journey was completely normal. The crew served breakfast to the passengers. The pilots were casually talking about their families, and everyone was happy because the next day was Christmas. Everyone was going home to meet their families. But as soon as the aircraft began preparing to descend, dark clouds gathered. Suddenly, a terrifying storm appeared ahead. The pilots decided they would not try to avoid the storm. They flew the plane straight into it. Within minutes, everything turned dark. Lightning began to strike. The turbulence became severe, extremely severe. Because of the turbulence, the luggage kept in the overhead compartments began falling onto the passengers. Panic spread among everyone on board. Almost 20 minutes. Imagine it, friends. This continued, and then suddenly, at an altitude of 21,000 feet, lightning struck the aircraft. The lightning hit the right wing, and the wing caught fire. A few seconds later, the right wing broke off completely from the plane, and part of the left wing also began to fall away. Just 15 minutes before landing at Pucallpa, at an altitude of about 10,000 feet, the plane began to break apart in mid-air. Air traffic controllers who were tracking the aircraft from the ground suddenly saw the plane's radar dot disappear. Some hoped maybe the plane had made an emergency landing. Soon it became clear the aircraft had completely crashed. This became the largest search operation in Peru's history. A few days later, when rescue workers reached the crash site deep in the Amazon jungle, they saw plane wreckage scattered everywhere. Passengers' belongings were hanging from trees. Suitcases had burst open mid-air, and Christmas gifts dangled from the branches like decorations on a Christmas tree. Rescue teams searched for days. No survivors were found. Eventually, everyone assumed all passengers had died. After all, who could survive falling from 10,000 feet? But that was not true. The world had no idea. One passenger was still alive. Miles away from any human settlement, deep in the Amazon rainforest, a 17-year-old girl was still breathing. Her name was Juliane Kupka, and her survival was nothing short of a miracle. But now, the real problem began. She lay alone on the forest floor, injured, and no one was coming to look for her because the rescue operation had already been called off. Her family and everyone else assumed she was dead, just like the others. Juliane was traveling with her mother, Maria. They were headed to the biological research station, Panguana, located in the Amazon, established by Juliane's zoologist parents. The plan was for the whole family to celebrate Christmas there. Originally, they were supposed to travel earlier, but Juliane's prom and graduation party forced them to take a last-minute flight. Because of the Christmas holidays, all reliable airlines were sold out. Their only remaining option was LANSA Airlines. Juliane's father had warned her mother many times never to travel with LANSA. The airline had a terrible reputation. People even joked in Spanish, "Lanza se lanza de panza," meaning LANSA falls flat on its belly. Several LANSA planes had crashed in recent years. This was the airline's last remaining aircraft, a Lockheed L-188 Electra turboprop. The plane was originally designed to fly over deserts. Its wings were stiff and tightly attached to the body. They could not flex like modern aircraft wings. It made it extremely vulnerable to turbulence, and one of the reasons the US had already retired it from service. No passenger on board knew the plane was not supposed to fly over mountains. This flight route crossed the Andes. When the lightning struck, Juliane was sitting in seat 19F in the second last row, a window seat. The row of 3 seats where she sat tore off from the plane. Because she had her seatbelt on, she remained strapped to her seat and fell from 10,000 feet. What happened next is considered one of the most unbelievable miracles in human history. Still strapped to her seat, Juliane plunged into open air. Compared to the roaring plane and screaming passengers, she now heard only the fierce wind. Seatbelt pressed so hard against her stomach that she struggled to breathe. Below was the dense Amazon canopy, so thick it looked like a field of broccoli. She lost consciousness mid-air. When she woke up, she found herself lying on the forest floor. It was the 25th of December, Christmas morning. Rain had poured all night, covering her clothes in mud. She had been unconscious the entire night. She tried to stand. She fainted repeatedly. After several attempts, she finally managed to remain conscious long enough to get up. She realized her collarbone had broken. Her knee was badly sprained. She had wounds on her right shoulder and left calf. One eye was completely swollen shut. Through the other, she could see only a thin, blurry line. She had lost her glasses, and her vision was already weak. One sandal was missing. She had a concussion. How did she survive such a fall? 3 miraculous factors. 1. Updraft winds beneath the storm pushed falling objects upward, slowing her descent. 2. Her row of seats spun rapidly like rotor blades, reducing fall speed further. 3. The dense canopy of Amazon trees acted like a cushioned net, absorbing the impact. Luck also played a major role. The angle of her fall, the tree she hit, and her body position. No one else survived. Julianne was the only one. Now she was alone in the deadliest jungle on Earth. She tried calling for her mother, but heard no reply. Only frogs, insects, and birds. The good news, the Amazon was not completely new to her. She had spent 3 years at Panguana with her zoologist parents. She knew which animals were poisonous, which plants were dangerous, and how to think logically in a crisis. After hours of rest, she could walk slowly. Her first mission, find her mother and other passengers. She shouted again and again, but the jungle swallowed every sound. She heard rescue helicopters above. The canopy was so thick that no one could see her. She realized she was truly alone. She needed 2 things to survive: water and food. She licked water droplets off leaves to stay hydrated. She searched for food. People assume dense rainforests have plenty to eat, but that is not true. Amazon floor gets almost no sunlight, so very little grows there. Fruits grow 20 meters high on palm trees. Impossible to reach in her condition. She found mushrooms but did not touch them. They could be poisonous. She found a box of Italian fruitcake from the plane. Rain had spoiled it. She eventually found a small packet of candies, about 30 pieces, and decided to ration them carefully, just a few pieces a day. Her watch, a gift from her grandmother, still worked. She wandered around the crash site aimlessly until she heard a faint dripping sound. She followed it and discovered a tiny freshwater stream emerging from the soil. This was hope. Her father had taught her a jungle survival rule: follow water. Small streams join bigger streams. Bigger streams become rivers. Rivers always lead to people. This was her only strategy. She followed the water. The Amazon is full of dangers: 8-foot caimans, venomous snakes, spiders, and lethal insects. Yet this 17-year-old walked alone with no idea where she was headed. As daylight faded, she faced her next challenge: surviving the night. Predators could attack easily. She found a place with her back against a tree, safer from surprise attacks. But it was raining heavily. Everything was soaked, so she could not make a fire. Exhausted, she fell into a deep sleep. At dawn, she continued walking. Her broken glasses made vision difficult. She encountered a giant spider, the Goliath bird-eater, the largest spider in the world, but she kept her distance. Days passed. On day 3, she found the first piece of aircraft wreckage, a turbine, burnt black. She still occasionally heard rescue planes, but had no way to signal them. That evening, her watch stopped. Day 4, she saw king vultures circling, a sign of dead bodies. She soon found 3 passengers, still strapped to their seats, buried headfirst 3 feet into the ground. It was horrifying. One was a woman. She feared it might be her mother. Seeing nail polish gave her relief. Her mother never wore nail polish. She moved on. Days blurred together. Her sense of time vanished. She repeated one mantra: follow the water. Stream grew into a wider stream, then into a small river. Her hunger became unbearable. Candies ran out. She tried eating palm heart, but had no knife. She could not fish. She drank river water, which kept her full for a short while. By now, she was extremely weak and mentally exhausted. On day 6, she heard a familiar bird call, the Hoatzin bird. She knew Hoatzins nest near open water along big rivers. This meant a large river was close. She pushed through dense vegetation for hours until she reached a river about 30 feet wide. For the first time in days, she saw open sky. The plane flew overhead, very close. She shouted and waved. The pilot did not see her. She waited, hoping another plane would come. None did. Soon, the distant sound of search aircraft faded forever. The rescue operation had ended. This crushed her. She reminded herself, where there is a river, there are people. She kept walking. Her wounds were now infected. Flies had laid eggs inside them. Maggots had begun eating her flesh. She had no alcohol or kerosene to remove them. She used her silver ring to dig them out, but many were deep. Her skin on her upper back had also burned and was peeling. Blood leaked from the wounds. Still, she kept walking. Eventually, she realized walking the riverbank was too slow. She entered the river and allowed the current to carry her downstream. But this too was dangerous. She hallucinated houses and chickens, none of it real. One day, lying at the riverbank, a large female caiman approached her in attack position. Julianne knew these caimans do not attack in the water, so she slipped into the river and let the current carry her again. By now she was freezing, starving, and barely alive. Day 10. She had nearly given up hope. As darkness fell, she lay on the sandbank, exhausted, and then she saw it. A boat. She rubbed her eyes repeatedly, thinking it was a hallucination, but the boat remained. She swam to it, touched it. It was real. Beside it, she saw a small path leading upward. With her last strength, she climbed it. At the top was a small hut. No one was inside, but there was petrol. She poured petrol onto her wound to force the maggots out. The pain was unbearable. The maggots burrowed deeper to escape. Slowly they emerged, and she counted them as she pulled them out. 30 maggots. She decided to stay in the hut and wait for people. Night passed, then morning. No one came. She had no strength to continue. She sat in despair, but that evening she heard voices, human voices. She feared another hallucination. Then she saw 3 men emerge from the forest. They stepped back in fear, seeing a battered, swollen-eyed, pale girl in torn clothes. In Amazonian mythology, there is a creature called Yakumama, the mother of waters, a giant anaconda spirit. The men thought she might be such a spirit. Julianne gathered her strength and spoke in Spanish. "I am the girl from the Lanza plane crash. My name is Julianne." The men were shocked. They told her everyone on that plane had died. The news had already spread. If she was truly a survivor, she was the only one. Julianne realized her mother, too, had not survived. Throughout her journey, she had held on to the hope her mother might be alive. Now that hope shattered. It was another miracle that these 3 men had arrived. They had stopped at the hut only because heavy rain forced them to. They gave her clothes, food, farina, roasted flour, cleaned her wounds, and removed more maggots. 2 more men joined them. The next day, they took her to a village. Villagers were frightened at first. Her eyes were entirely blood red from burst vessels. Her wounds were treated and disinfected. She was then flown to Yarinacocha for medical care. After several days, Julianne returned home alive. She had survived 11 days alone in the deadly Amazon rainforest. Her miraculous story shocked the entire world. Julianne left the jungle, but the jungle never left her. She later studied biology at the University of Kiel and became a renowned zoologist, dedicating her life to conservation, just like her mother. After her father's death in 2000, she became director of the Panguana Research Station. As of 2025, Julianne Koepka is 71 years old and still alive. In a 2010 interview, she said she had nightmares for years, seeing the passengers from that flight in her dreams. One question haunted her. Why me? Why did I survive when others didn't? Investigators later found that 14 other passengers had also survived the initial crash, but died waiting for rescue. Julianne survived because she acted, using knowledge, courage, and logic. This story teaches us that no matter how difficult our lives become, we should remember Julianne. Her challenges were far greater. If a 17-year-old girl could fight death for 11 days in the Amazon, we can face our own struggles too.